live stream, so just. Could you share this with them?
I think it's easy to say in the mic. All right. It's not on the agenda, so we're just gonna kind of skip over the pleasantries. And, I'd like to call to order the Claymont Board of Education public hearing. We're gonna do a roll call.
Ms. Campbell, Mrs. Grandison, Mrs. Host is absent, Mr. Peters,
Here.
and Mrs. Wolf.
So just to kind of give everybody the rundown of how this is going to operate. Mr. Wrench is going to come up and give a presentation about some of the options we have ahead of us for possibility of consolidation of our schools. Once he gets through with that, we have questions in the back. Hopefully some people filled some questions out and turned them in. We're going to go through those. We warn you ahead. They are going to screen them. They're not going to eliminate any questions, but we will not be doing duplicate questions. If we have a bunch of the same question, we obviously are not going to read through all of those and answer those separately. So once those are done, we are going to provide the opportunity for people to speak. So if you'd like to speak, come over to this area here towards the end here, and we will give you an opportunity. It'll be 5 minutes. You have a 5-minute time limit, and it'll be timed up here on stage by myself, and I'll have the gavel, and we keep it going smoothly here. We appreciate everybody coming out, and look forward to working with everybody. Thank you.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Kim Beckley. I'm the treasurer here at Claymont City Schools, and I just wanted to give some brief explanation, do a kind of a Finance 101 for school funding. So the state of Ohio operates on a biannual budget, and so therefore we really only know what funds to expect every 2 years. So the current budget that we're working with started July 1st of 2025, and it will go through June 30th of 2027. The Fair School Funding Plan was incorporated into the budget starting back in fiscal year 2022 with a 6-year phase-in. That formula was the first time that the state was using an actual formula to distribute the funds available to public schools on a formula-based system that calculates the base cost of educating each individual student based on inputs such as teacher salaries, technology, and support services. Also, they built in a cost-sharing component that distributes cost on the district's ability to raise revenue. So through local property taxes and or income taxes versus the state having to be fully responsible to provide the funds. The goal of that state fair school funding plan was to reduce reliance on the local property taxes and fix decades of an inequity across all school districts in Ohio. So the implementation of that formula went on for 4 years, but during this current budget, the legislators decided to pause it. So the inputs that's used in the formula was put on hold, and that would have been for wages and fringe benefits. So those remain at the fiscal year 22 levels rather than updating them fully. But on the other side of it, the local share components of property values and residential income were updated to the current levels. So this mismatch in updating the formula inputs created an imbalance of the cost sharing. And currently, the calculated state share of funding for Claymont, we receive 59.37% from the state. The rest of it is from property taxes. A few years ago, I remember we were at around 71% state funded. One other thing that had changed with the new plan, the formula, was funding follows the students. So if they're a residential student here, but they open and roll out, or if they go to a charter school, the state share of that money follows them to that district. So the only thing remains here at our district is the local share. The future of this formula is under scrutiny by our legislators, while education advocates push for the continuation of this formula and making the updates equal. This chart here shows how the state and the local shares, how it works with each other. And you can see by the fiscal years. So when the state share, as the state share goes, with the input, okay, let's back up. Fiscal year 99 is when the DeRolf ruling was. So the DeRolf ruling went back to say that it was unconstitutional of how the state was distributing money. So it was found through court system that it was unconstitutional. But between then and 22, when that state fair school funding plan took effect, basically we were on that guarantee. So basically we wouldn't receive less than the year before. But as you see, the state share percentage has gone down consistently over the years. And especially when you look at fiscal years 25, 26, and 27, when they didn't update the state share of the formula, it totally went the other way, where there's local share is getting more of the funding put on them. So talk a little bit about property tax and the millage. So there's two different types of property taxes. There's inside millage. That's property tax that's levied without a vote of the people. It's constitutionally limited to a maximum of 10 mills that is shared among the local governments. So that can be from the counties to townships to municipalities and schools. It's funded to operate, it's to fund operating expenses, debt service, or permanent improvements. Our district share is 4.2 mills, and it's not affected by any reduction factor. Now, outside millage is the levies that are approved by the citizens of the district and can fund operating expenses, debt services, or permanent improvements. There is a reduction factor, House Bill 920. As property values rise, the effective tax rates are reduced to ensure tax collection does not automatically increase beyond what was originally approved of that dollar amount. There is a state mandated minimum where if a district's tax rate falls below 20 mills due to rising property tax values, the state forces it back up to 20 mills. So 1 mill equals $1 for every $1,000 of taxable or assessed value, which is 35% of your appraised value determined by the county auditor. Did you want to say something?
So if a levy is passed, and it's passed that we collect $1 million 20 years ago, 20 years today, we only collect $1 million, even though property tax and property evaluations on our homes have gone up. We do not, it flatlines. So we collect $1 million when we pass the levy. 20 years later, we're only collecting $1 million. So hopefully that makes sense to folks as far as how that goes. And it's as a calculation there, the 1 mil for every $1,000 excess is 35% of that. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. So some key statistics to remember. So homeowner share of the K-12 funding in 1991, it was at 46% average. In 2026, it went up to 67.5%. This is across the state. While the state share in 99 was at 45.7%, and we're looking at 27, the state share is going down to 32.2%. And then, so the income and the home value gap, Ohio incomes are 12% lower than the national average, but our home values are skyrocketing, up nearly 46% since 2020 across Ohio. And abated property, which is like a city or a town can give abatements, which means that people wouldn't have to pay their property taxes for a certain amount of years, maybe to drum up business or bring in residential stuff. So it's skyrocketed from 2004 at 5.7 billion up to 26.6 billion dollars in 2024. Another area that's been affected is the cost share between businesses and residentials when we collect property taxes. So you can see in 1975, the total business share was at 53.9% and residential share was 46.1%. Come fast forward to 2023, total business now is at 32.5% and our residential share has increased to 67.5%. So, residential taxpayers now carry 2/3 of Ohio schools' funding in comparison to their business counterparts. So families are paying significantly more, but schools are not necessarily gaining more resources. I just wanted to throw in a look at Claymont's enrollment trend over the last 10 years. I went back to 2015-2016 school year. The enrollment at that point was 2,010 students. And this year, right now, we're sitting at 1,431 students. And at that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
So our district finance committee and our board of education has been discussing our enrollment and discussing our finances over the last several years and what's kind of led us to where we are today. Taking a look at what can we do as a district. We've taken a look at, in the past, we have taken a look at a reduction in staff. We have taken a look at attrition as far as can we eliminate a position as someone retires to alleviate someone getting reduced in force again. So we were looking at the various different options. So staffing is what we're looking at as far as we're pretty much right with our staff. So that's something that we're not taking a look at as there. But the recent move of the inside millage by the Tuscarawas County Board of Education or Budget Commission prompted the district to continue planning again for an addition out at the high school to make that building a 612. That money will not be collected until 2027 for the district to continue to move forward. However, we're still uncertain about that money because the fact is that it's still in court appeal, and until the court comes back, we don't want to make any determinations to move forward. But the board has had discussions about where do we go from here? How do we operate 5 buildings? What do we need to do to keep our district solvent? So it's been discussed that we take a look at a variety of consolidations. Senate Bill 311 is being discussed within obviously the Senate about underutilized or underused school facilities. So that's based upon enrollment. So if you have a building that can house 1,000 students and you have 400 students, they're going to take a look at you're underutilizing your facility. So that is something that's coming from the state legislatures as well. The downside is we're taking a look at consolidation. The potential consolidation is with the inside millage being moved, but not guaranteed, that the district would be moving and possibly looking at different grade levels, moving maybe multiple times. When taking a look at our school buildings, our square footage, you have the high school that's 129,000 square feet. As you can see, the middle school, intermediate, and elementary, and the primary square footage. And a lot of the elementary and the primary is based upon the fact that they have a shared space between their gym and it's also a cafeteria. So it serves dual purpose. So the Board of Education has been presented with options as far as how they need or want to move forward. So the Board of Education can sit there and they can say, we're going to maintain our current buildings as they are. Now, going back to Kim's presentation over finances, there is legislation again and on how to reduce property tax and how that eliminates and how that impacts schools. So if that continues impacting schools the way it's being written as far as now, honestly, I'm scared, and I know Kim is scared as far as how that impacts negatively our school system. Option B that was presented to the Board of Education was taking a look at closing the intermediate school and then moving the 8th graders to the high school. 4th and 5th graders move to the middle school, and 3rd move to the elementary. Another option would be, again, closing the intermediate, moving those schools. The only one option would be changing in that would be 1st grade would go to the primary building. Option D, close the elementary building, and then you're keeping the intermediate building open with 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and primary would maintain as preschool and kindergarten. If we went to the options of eliminating the intermediate building, we would have the high school not making a change in their start and stop time. We'd have all our buses begin out at the high school, run to the middle school at 7:50, then 2:50, and then go to the elementary, and then to the, excuse me, and then go to the primary building. What we want to eliminate, the fact is that we currently have buses that sometimes go to a building, let's say we dismiss at 3 o'clock, and a bus might not come back to that building by 3:05, 3:10, but by working and reducing, we have a better plan to be able to get to our schools with our students going to those schools and dismissing at the same time with all our bus fleet. And going with our bus fleet, our oldest bus is a 2008. And, as far as our purchasing buses, we purchase a bus to eliminate the oldest bus from our fleet. And bus costs are going up astronomically. And so we have currently about 14 buses in our fleet, but we have 11 on the road every single day. So we have them, the oldest that's on the road every day is a 2017, and we have a 2025 that's on the road as well. And some of those were purchased in the last several years through a transportation grant through the state. So that's how we've been able to replenish our our buses for us. Going into the population, with the options, option A is maintain our current structures. Option B, you take a look at what our student population would hold. 463 for an 812 building, 451 for a 47 building, 307 for a first 3 building, and 185 for a pre-K building. Option C We have the elementary changing at 207 with first and or second, third. Primary would be preschool 1, 290, and also option D, intermediate 307, and then the primary building would be 185. As the board considers this, as far as moving forward, they have to take into consideration timeline. As I stated at the last board meeting, time is at the essential. But I will say that at New Philadelphia City Schools, when their bond issue didn't pass several years ago, in May, at June, they grade leveled all their buildings and reshifted everybody. But the timeline is essential because, as I explained at the last board meeting, we're taking a look at the behind the scenes things that need to be done. You know, changing the technology plans, moving equipment, changing the IRN. So it's a lot of behind the scene. It's not just packing up stuff and then moving the stuff. There's a lot more things that need to be done. And as I said, behind the scenes. Obviously, we need to purchase boxes. Last time we had a grade shift move, we had box trucks from, at that time, it was truck sales. We do have a plan looking at that as far as moving. It would be done as rooms are clean and ready to go. So you would move a room as it was ready for in the new building. Taking a look at our drop-off and pickup zones, trying to keep people off the streets with our drop-off and pickup zones as much as we can. Staff parking at the middle school. There's a lot behind our building, and then we have the street parking that we have as well. So that hadn't changed. That'd be one concern. The middle school play area, going as far as fencing in, which would be the far corner by the gym, and fencing in some of the area out on the play on the grass. That would become a play area for students here at the middle school. So the board's taking a look at what decision that they would need to make. You know, with no reductions within the classroom teaching staff, and due to scheduling and setup, et cetera, the decision would need to be made by March timeline for it to be effective in 26-27. And that's going to lead us to our questions that were submitted, and they're going to be our moderator tonight will be Mr. Watkins, and he'll go through those, and the board members will be coming up and taking the microphone and answering questions or deferring to some administrations if necessary.
Okay, so now we're going to enter into the public forum part of our agenda, which we do need to, before we do that, approve the meeting agenda. So can I get a motion and a second? Martha and Michelle. And then Kim, roll call.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf?
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison? And Mr. Peters?
Yes. Okay, so with that, we will send it over to Mr. Watkins with some of the questions.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. This is just a comment. First one is just a comment, and this comment just points out the concern of closing the former Denison High School.
We appreciate that concern. We are looking at all of our options right now, so nothing is set in stone.
Another question, why aren't you considering closing the smallest school?
Mr. Wrench, could you address that, please? Thank you.
I know history, sometimes history doesn't repeat itself, because if the smallest school is always closed, at some point you're going to have to take a look at structures as far as the building, and what building provides you the better options as far as maintaining your environment for schools. So the smallest school in this avenue isn't always necessarily the first option that has been presented.
Don't go away, Mr. Wrench. If you close a building, what are the plans for it and why?
I'll say, Alex, could you repeat the question? If you close a building, what are the plans for it and why? Under the Ohio Revised Code, taking a look at a building, you have options as far as, first, it has to be given to a community school within the district. We do not have any community schools within the school system, so that is an option that we won't have to explore. And then you have to take a look at, if the board chooses to remove the building from its insurance policy and the things as far as getting rid of the building, then it has to be looked at as fair market value whenever you look to potentially sell a building. So it'd be fair market value if the board chooses to eliminate a building once it's closed.
Ready? This school is located in the heart of Denison. As a young woman looking to settle down and raise a family here, that is something I want. The intermediate has an established supported schedule with busing, pickup, etc. They are also seconds away from safety services, which is crucial. Why close a school that has a working support system?
Mr. Wrench, could you come up and address that? I know most of these options were not formulated by us as board members, but as you and your administrative team.
That is true. Taking a look at the options that we had presented to us. Within most school systems, they aren't as lucky as we are within our parameter. We can get from the board office to the elementary within less than 2 miles. So we have 2 safety services within our parameters of our schools within miles, and the furthest one is obviously the high school, which is out on Indian Hill Road. So taking a look at safety services, those are an option, but as far as, how far do we have to go? And there's many times I know that Uhrichsville aids Denison and Denison aids Uhrichsville as well.
I'd like to just say, before we continue, the administrative team came up with these options at the request of us as the board. So I don't want to pass the buck all the way off on the administrative team. We requested these options because of the financial hardships we're facing here soon. So that's why we're kind of passing off some of these answers to Mr. Wrench and Kim and the other administrators that were involved in coming up with these options.
So here are 2 very similar questions that we're just going to kind of combine. I'll read them both, but they're very similar in nature. My role in students' lives is being a kindergarten teacher. My question is related to financial transparency. What is the full cost-benefit analysis comparing maintaining current buildings and consolidating grade levels, utilities, staffing, realignment, maintenance, etc.? In regards to financial transparency, what are the ongoing operational costs associated with consolidation, utilities, staffing, maintenance, etc.?
I think this one's going to be one for Kim. Thank you, Kim.
I can't rattle off numbers for that, but I have done these studies. I have provided the board with all of that information. So, I mean, if you would like to see it, you can request it from me and I can provide that.
What guarantees do we have on our children's safety combining pre-adults with young children? As much as we would like all to believe in harmonious order, the fact is it has been known to be an unsafe mix. Sure, there were some big words in there. I apologize if I went fast. What guarantees do we have? It's not, I think it's more of a, maybe there was a little bit of a question and a comment. What guarantees do we have on our children's safety combining pre-adults with young children? As much as we would all like to believe in harmonious order, the fact is it has been known to be an unsafe mix. Pre-adults with young children. If you, Mrs. Grandison was asking a clarifying question. Are you talking about 8th graders with high school kids? Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it's the mix of 8th graders with high schools, as Mr. Wrench said, if you didn't hear him, because there were really no like preschoolers, kindergartners with high school kids.
Structured. They'll still have the 8th graders will still have their space at the high school. Is that correct? Yeah. So I personally don't see a problem with 8th graders being with 9th graders, that we're doing it, and all the others, a lot of school districts are doing that. So that's my personal opinion.
Where's that?
There will be some crossovers between like potentially restrooms going to various classes depending upon where they're located, but taking a look at where they are going to be spaced now, 8th graders would be placed within a certain set of wings. As Mrs. Grandison did say, that there are other school systems that have had 7th and 8th graders in with their high schoolers, and they are, say, separated, and that there has some crossovers. Providing some of those crossovers, I used to work in a district in West Lafayette many years ago, that was one of the questions that was presented when they moved their 8th graders to their high schoolers. And today they have some of those kids are attending high school Spanish class for credit, high school English class for credit. So we're getting advanced technologies within their academic schedules. So many years ago when Ridgewood was considering that was a concern. But if you ask them today, that is not a concern on their part.
So and that's fine. We got a lot of kids going to the Kent State branch, and we can't control the setting up there. And I haven't heard of any incidents at the Kent State branch with 8th graders going to college, and they're going with even older students than just high school kids.
Well, while you bring that up, we do have College Credit Plus. So some of you that are back in the as old as I am, they used to call it post-secondary, but they call it College Credit Plus. You can be taking college classes as early as 7th grade. So if you have that option, and we do offer college classes at our high school for kids that are within our schools. We also can take a look at our career tech. And having our career tech, we do have 2 career tech classes here currently at our middle school, but we could also look at expanding that as well when providing those students with those options. There is legislation, it was passed, that if you are in with a math class and you are an accelerated math student, that you should be advanced to the next grade level. So if you were a 6th grader and you were at an accelerated level on your math test as 6th grader, really you could jump to 8th grade math. And that's where we're wanting to challenge our kids and provide those opportunities that we can. So by having a consolidation down into, at this time, with our 8th graders being at that building you could be taking College Credit Plus, which is very limited for us over here as a middle school student having those opportunities. So that is one avenue and one positive into that nature.
I just have a question though. So on our school buses, do we not have all grades on the school buses? I'm not sure how that works, Mr. Henry. Maybe you could address it. But I mean, I'm thinking that you have high schoolers and 8th graders and 7th graders and 4th graders down to 1st graders possibly all riding the same buses as well. And I understand it's different than an in-school setting, but still it's not like we're not mixing our kids together then as well, correct? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And if you didn't hear Mr. Henry's comment, he said that is correct. And I just happened to see Mrs. Leinard. So Mrs. Leinard does have junior high 8th graders in the high school band. So we're being able to promote them into the high school criteria and curriculum by providing that opportunity as well.
I'm a preschool teacher at the primary building. My question is related to building capacity and logistics. What are the true capacity numbers of each building? Not theoretical, but function capacity based on programming.
I don't have that information in this packet you gave us, Mr. Wrench, today at least. I know you've given it to us before, but I don't have
Yes.
that on hand.
Preschool logistics was discussed at our last board meeting regarding regarding the criteria and the ratio with each student. Also, we discussed students could be in the cafeteria at the same time as long as they have the correct ratio with preschool students if there are school-age students in there. The only time that it ever bodes a difficult situation would be if they're on the playground together and if you have a student who is over 36 months beyond a 3rd grader. So, and Mrs. Cook has already taken a look at that schedule and has said when preschoolers are out on the playground, there should not be any other students out on the playground that are school age. So that's already been quickly addressed. As far as restrooms, again, it goes back to the correct ratio with those students. So they could be using shared restroom space as well. So that was addressed at the last board meeting. As far as building capacity, we'll have to take a look at Mr. Watkinson who submitted that, and we'll have to get that answer back to you as at this point in time. But that building is 36,000 square feet as presented. So we do have 5 classrooms of preschool, 6 classrooms of kindergarten in that building, and then there's other spaces that are also utilized as well currently.
My role in student lives is a school nurse. My question is related to building capacity and logistics. What renovations or upgrades are heard to support consolidation, and what is the timeline?
Yeah. Ironically, that was what we did at the gym tonight. As far as we did some major renovations within our clinics this last several years using ESSER dollars. We spent $7 million in those ESSER dollars on building facilities, HVAC units, chillers as well. So building consolidation, having already done major renovations within that, the only building that we have had would be the middle school, and there's still the clinic space with basically across the hall here from there. So we do have capabilities to handle nurses. Currently, we do have a telehealth nurse through a grant through Altman that provides telehealth, and also we do have the clinic that is there for students to use if they need to make appointments.
Mr. Wrench, before you step away, could you just go over the timeline, best case scenario with the potential addition to the high school, and then worst case scenario when we get to move out to do that?
Yes. Currently, the best case scenario would be for the start of the 28-29 school year that there would be an addition at the high school and that building would become a 612 building. Due to the inside millage, the Budget Commission voting no, and then going to the appeal process, that's pushed that project back further and further. So at currently as we speak right now, it would be the 28-29 school year.
My question is, how will the building closures affect class sizes, student support needs, and individualized instruction?
Well, first of all, and during my presentation, I did say that we weren't taking a look at reducing classroom teachers. So that's number one there. Class size, at some point, the board is still going to have to monitor our enrollment. If it does continue to decrease, obviously our enrollment sizes, but you did see through Kim's presentation where our enrollment was several years ago and to where it currently is today. So the true question was, how does that impact each of our buildings? So being able to streamline, and years ago, whenever you went from each grade neighborhood schools into grade leveling, you were able to streamline and provide more opportunities for your student with your staffing. So that'll continue with this option as well.
We have lost 23% in students in the last 10 years. Why do we need more buildings?
This would not be a new building. It would be in addition to a current building. And the goal for the Board of Education over time was to decrease the number of buildings that we had. So currently we operate the school system with 5 buildings. And by consolidating, they'll be down to 4. And eventually, if the inside millage would be moved and there is an add-on, the board will still continue to evaluate. So the question was, why do we need more buildings? We're not actually, we actually don't have more buildings. We're expanding one building and then closing others to be able to consolidate down.
Besides building administrators, how did you collaborate with certified teachers and OPSI staff when making these decisions? How can you explain that the decisions made were made with care, transparency, and thought out plans?
First of all, please understand that everyone seated at this table, as well as Mrs. Host, who is not with us this evening, we all care, and we all are all very, very concerned about all of the students and the staff in this district. This is not being done on a whim. We have really looked at this. We've looked at it from the financial perspective. You have to understand, there are some buildings that are older than the others, and the cost to upkeep those buildings continues to increase with costs, just like if you're fixing something in your home. Now, did we go to the CEA? Did we go to OPSI? No, that has not been done. Now, maybe down the road, if we're making other changes, that's something we consider doing. But we are in a situation financially that we don't have time to go any further and wait. You know, we're in a situation that what if our enrollment continues to lower? You know, I mean, this is a great community. I love living here. I've lived here my whole life. But I'm not young. I don't have kids. And a lot of people that live in this community are more aged. I'll use that kind word instead of saying, oh, like I say about myself. And I think that we have to understand that is one thing that is diminishing the enrollment in the school district as well. And I think you have to understand, we're not just looking at one or two specific things. We're not trying to pick on one group or pick on another group. I think we're very fortunate that even by making the changes that are suggested, that we are actually having the opportunity that we're going to be able to keep our teaching staff. That is very important to us as well. And I think there's so many things that have gone into this. And just please understand that no decision has being made on a whim. It's not. We've been talking about this for a long time, you know, in little pieces of it. But now we're at a time that we need to come together and make the decisions in the best interest of the students and for their education in the school district.
All right. Thank you.
What is the plan for ongoing staff engagement between now and the board vote? Why is the board voting on March 31st during spring break when staff is off?
I can kind of attest to that as based on what we've been told as a board from the administration and people that are going to be boots on the ground trying to make this transition, whatever we decide to do, or if we don't decide to do it. They would like us to have a decision by the beginning of April so that they can start planning for the move or transition or whatever has to happen. That's my 2 cents on that.
It was mentioned in a recent article the decline of student enrollment was over 100 students in the past year. How many students has our school district lost over the past 5 years, and what do you see as the issue for this decline in enrollment? What was ever done to help target that problem?
Mr. Wrench, that's your ballpark.
Well, I do believe that Kim made a presentation on where our enrollment is, but I've been asked by many media personnel, other folks. There's many different factors that have gone into the enrollment. Number one, COVID. When we had to pivot and start teaching in a different form and fashion as we had, because we're a brick and mortar building, and when we're a brick and mortar building, we taught a certain way that we've always taught, that we taught the way that we were told to teach. So we went to an online format. So when we came out of COVID, we returned to a brick and mortar type of operations. Many families chose to say, I don't like the brick and mortar options, I like the online. Now, when the state says that you have to restrict how you operate an online program, that helps Quaker Digital Academies to excel. Also, number two into that is that the legislators also have made applying for home instruction, homeschooling, so much easier. They submit a letter to the school and they say, we're homeschooling. They do not have to provide a curriculum anymore. They do not have to provide assessments as they go through. They basically say, we're homeschooling. And then they are homeschooled. And one of the larger contributors is it goes through the state legislatures again, is the use of school vouchers, school choice. So if I want to take my money and I would like to go to a non-public school, or I'd like to go to a charter school, that money, as Kim explained, that money does follow them and through that. So those are three things that have factored in. We did look at several years ago as far as why some of our students were leaving, and some of them were to open enrollment and some were to other avenues. So we still have open enrollment that falls into that as well. The open enrollment factor is pretty much leveled off at this point. But our big contributing factors, again, are homeschooling, parent choice with the vouchers, and also they said, my kid feels better, they want to learn more online and be at home to do so. So that's what's large. Since 2020, that's what's impacted us the most.
There are 4 questions here. I'll read them all and then I'll go back and repeat. Future plans to build new facilities, plans to sell buildings after closure, risk assessment performed for potential buildings to close, and maintenance plan proposal to keep all facilities. So again, future plans to build new facilities, plans to sell buildings after closure, risk assessment performed for potential buildings to close, and maintenance plan proposal to keep all facilities.
Future plan to build new facilities. I think I highlighted that one already. The future plans would be based upon the inside millage, and also being able to then add on, and then if we are moving forward, that would be open in 28, 29. Plans to sell buildings after they close. I think I've gone through that one as well already. It has to go to a community school within a school district. There aren't any community schools within the school district, and then it could be sold for fair market value. Risk assessment performed for potential buildings to close. Working with Braden, and as far as our buildings and grounds, we've taken a look at what we have as far as our buildings and what needs to be done as far as what we have in our capital plan. And a maintenance plan for proposed buildings to keep all facilities. We do have that capital plan. And that capital plan does highlight different things as far as what we need to do, as far as what needs to be addressed. What Kim didn't address earlier today, as far as we allot $400,000 a year to fix up our buildings and keep them going. $400,000. So you take a look at a capital plan that may say, well, you need a new roof. It's going to cost you $1.4 million. So we're getting tar, a bucket of tar, and going up and patching holes that need to be replaced because our budget is $400,000. When we take a look at, I've explained as far as our busing, and we take a look at having a bus and trying to take our oldest one out of the fleet and add a new bus. If you've bought a new car anytime recently, you know that they've gone up. Our last bus that we did purchase was like $133,000. Now they're up to about $150,000 to $160,000. So that comes out of capital money as well. So $400,000 is used to keep up our facilities. That's what we allot every year. And that doesn't count into the times that we just have a major blowout of something that we have to fix. So we take off that money and out of the general fund if we have to, depending upon what needs fixed.
Several questions here, and we'll go one at a time. If you close the old Denison High School, property values may drop. It will weaken community attachment, and Denison would lose some of its taxes, as well as Denison's last school. What would prevent another tax lawsuit with Uhrichsville? Sure. The board members asked me to repeat this. If you close the old Denison High School, property values may drop. It will weaken community attachment, and Denison will lose some of its taxes, as well as Denison's last school. What would prevent another tax lawsuit with Uhrichsville?
So I think that, so I don't, if you're not sure what he's talking about by the tax lawsuit. So back when, oh my gosh, I'm really old and this is going to show it. So back when we actually built the new high school and we knew that we would be taking employees that transfer from Uhrichsville and Denison, there was an agreement that was made between the village of Denison, the city of Uhrichsville, and the school board that the taxes for those teachers in Uhrichsville then would go to Uhrichsville, and then Uhrichsville would pay a portion of that to the village of Denison. The lawsuit, unfortunately, came about because a prior administration in Uhrichsville decided that they were not going to pay that money anymore, is my understanding. So I don't know where that's going to impact this because I don't think an agreement has been put in place. I mean, we would not have a problem if the city and the village would also want to continue and include teachers from that building, if that intermediate building is the one that is closed, to make a change there. And I think it may have already been proposed to them to maybe consider it, but I can't say that for sure because I wasn't in that meeting.
Both mayors back in July, we did sit down with them and talk about the potential looking at closing buildings with the addition to the high school. Going back to any shared revenue and things, I think Ms. Campbell said that goes back to the administration at the village and the city and working out those how that tax revenue is shared if it's shared with under the current contract agreement, or if they come up with a different contract and agreement as well. So that goes back with the municipalities to kind of figure that out. Our input on the school system is we just earmark who's going Denison and who's going Uhrichsville as far as our taxes, and then that is factored into the payments for our into Uhrichsville, and then Uhrichsville cuts the check to Denison.
Same person, another question. Why can't the voters decide? Why can't the voters decide?
Sorry about that, but one thing I would like to say to answer that question for sure is that understand that it was the voters that elected these people to serve the school district. And my hope is that they elected the people to serve this school district and to make the best decisions they believe we will be the people that would make the best decisions for the students in the school district. All decisions that we make are not easy. No matter what level you're at, any decision that you have to make about your community, about your school district, about your church, about your life, it's not all easy. But we are taking everything into consideration before this decision is being made. It cannot, what would you take to the voters? I mean, you can't say, what building do you close? What do you think should be done and shouldn't be done as far as, taking care of the maintenance and the upkeep of all the buildings? So I think we are entrusting that you have given us that faith and that trust to move forward and do what's best for this district. Now, not everybody agrees, and I get it. I get the sentimentality issue of like, it's Denison High School. My mom graduated from Denison High School. I was actually a student in there when I was in junior high. I understand that. Fortunately, I know that I have memories no matter what. There are things in my life that are gone now that I still have my memories from that thing or from that person. And I guess we're doing what we think is in the best interest for these students. And you know what? A couple of us will be up in 2 years. If you don't like the decision we make, run for the school board, or you can also vote us out, put other people in. But this is what part of our job is. And so that is why this is the way it happens. Actually deciding which buildings close, that's not really something that goes to the public. We listen to everyone. I've gotten multiple calls, multiple emails, multiple texts. People have actually seen me out in public and given me their opinion. I take it all into consideration. So I just want you to be aware of that.
A couple questions here that are related to the high school, so I'm going to combine them. Will there be additional counselors at the high school? How would sharing the cafeteria work at the high school? And how would sharing the gym work with extra activities? Will there be additional counselors at the high school? How would sharing the cafeteria work at the high school? And how would sharing the gym work with extra activities at the high school?
Mr. Wrench or Mrs. Barnhart, you guys are more qualified to answer that.
How would sharing the cafeteria work? Until we're taking a look at whether this actually is voted on, we have had conversations about sharing the cafeterias, and it's the development of a schedule and how that works. Currently, we have a couple lunch periods that we have students that cycle through. It would be a scheduling factor. One whole period would be for 8th grade. So how it's sharing for the gym work with extra activities, looking at all our options that were presented tonight, keeping the middle school was still part of that option. So if we're playing any 7th and 8th grade basketball games or volleyball games, they would be still happening here at this building. And additional counselors, taking a look at where we are with those counselors, we do have an increase in some of our students, but we'll have to evaluate that logistics as we move forward.
What would happen if enrollment goes up? What would happen if enrollment goes up?
Well, I think we explained and we'd had this conversation at our last board meeting as far as if enrollment does go up. You know, if we have, as I made a comment, as far as we have 200 students coming into the school system, and we actually have, since 2024, we've lost that same number. So we're going to be able to absorb those students, and they aren't all coming in at first grade. They aren't all coming in at eighth grade of those students. So we have lost that enrollment over time. Our class sizes are currently where they are, and we could make those adjustments as far as we have there. If you're getting 800 new people moving into the school and each one of them has 5 kids, then that would transpire into a situation that we'd have to evaluate as well. But that's currently not what we're taking a look at under our current circumstances. So last several years, we've lost 200 kids, and if we have 200 kids moving into the school system, we'll be able to absorb them within our schools as well.
What does the staff think about this? What does the staff think about this?
You're going to have to ask the staff. We can't answer for other people. I have heard from several staff, and it's positive. They're going with the flow, whatever we decide. But in order to, that'd be something you have to ask staff. All the staff I've heard, it's all been positive. But in all the different options, I've talked about what option do you like the best. The staff that I've talked to is about 50-50 in all of them. So I'm not hearing anything, but I can't really pinpoint what the first grade teacher said or the third grade teacher said, because I don't know what they're thinking. The only person that knows what they're thinking is them. So you'd have to ask them. But I do know that the staff that I have talked to, I'm getting all positive. They know something needs to be done, and that's not their. One of the teachers said, it's not my plan to decide how you run the school. And so it's a hard decision. I'm torn between all the options, but I do know financially, it's like running your own home. If the electric bill goes up and you're not using 2 of your rooms, you shut them off. So the electric bill will go down. So you make changes in your own home life to accommodate your income and your expenses. So the same thing has to happen at a business level. And being a business owner since 1986, I've made a lot of decisions with my company that has affected my employees. I don't always go to my employees for suggestions. I do go to my administrators because I feel my administrators are listening to their employees. So when we did ask, as a board, when we did ask our administrators to come up with an option, I'm under the assumption that they're working with their staff and they know what their concerns are. So to have all staff members input, you needed to go to your administrator to give that input. It's almost impossible to meet with everybody. I have 250 employees. I don't call them when I'm changing room assignments. I talk with my office staff. So that's the reason we went to the administrators, because they're the ones in close connection. They're the day-to-day operation in each of their buildings, and we've entrusted them to run their building and decide what their needs are.
And at the end, we're going to open this up to comments or statements for 5 minutes for anybody that wants to come up and talk, if any staff have any comments or concerns.
Final question from this person. Why does a decision need to be made with such short notice? Why does a decision need to be made with such short notice?
I'll just say I agree. Martha's said it multiple times. This was not done lightly, and we've been talking about this for a while. It's been brought up multiple board meetings heading into now, and it's just gotten to the point where we need to come up with an idea, or maybe not an idea. It's not something that's just been rushed. It's been kind of honestly put off. I think we've been trying to keep it the way it is for as long as we can, but different situations have kind of pushed us to trying to find a solution here. So.
Final submitted question. Actually, there are 3 here. I'll read them and then I'll go back through. Is the board still going to close the intermediate building? Is the board still going to spend $17 million on an addition to the high school? Is it smarter to pay millions for the addition versus spending funds on maintenance of the intermediate building? So again, question number 1, is the board still going to close the intermediate building?
That decision has not officially been made yet. That is still, although I've had people come up and say, I heard we're closing that. That's what they're hearing. We have not made our decision yet, okay? I will tell you that right now. We've not made our decision. But if we are going to close, what was the second one?
Is the board still going to spend $17 million on an addition to the high school?
Again, also up in the air because they have to wait and see what the appellate court does about the decision for the inside millage. So for next school year, is there going to be a new addition built on already and we're going to switch that out? No, that is not going to happen. We're still waiting for decisions on that. And then what was the other one?
And the final one was, is it smarter to pay millions for the addition versus spending funds on maintenance of the intermediate building?
So my personal opinion on this is, for example, I had a leak in my roof in November, or actually late October. So I could just keep a tarp over it and let it suffer through the wind and the rain, which I actually had to do, and some snow. Or you make the decision, do I buy the new roof now or do I wait 10 years and buy the new roof? We are looking, I really need everybody to understand, this is not just about potentially closing a building, about moving students. It is about money. It is about finances. The state is supposed to be, when I went to school, the amount of money that the state gave, percentage-wise at that time, was a lot higher than it is now. Now, the state legislature seems to be making the moves that they would prefer not to have public schools in the state of Ohio. We have seen that happen. They're okay with spending $600 million, giving that to a billionaire to build a new stadium in Cleveland, but they're not making sure that our students are given the same opportunities to be properly educated. I think that it is in our best interest and is also part of our duty to make sure that we are making the best financial decisions. Something needs to happen. We cannot afford to keep 5 buildings going. We can't afford it. The cost of those is getting out of hand. Several of our buildings are very, very old. Sometimes, build a new thing. The upkeep of that is going to end up being cheaper than what it is on the older buildings. My house, you don't even want to know, but I still got to put it in my house. But I'm just saying, we have to look at all aspects of this. And I think that what I really want to emphasize, again, my personal opinion, but I really think you need to understand we have a major financial concern for the future of this school district and its students.
Is that all that was on that, Brian? Is that all the questions? Okay. So with that, we're going to open up. If you'd like to speak, come up and say something. We're going to give you 5 minutes if you'd like it. And I'll be monitoring that up here. Yeah, if you guys would like to line up on this side of the place or find a seat over there if you'd like to. Mr. DiDonato?
Thank you.
Hold on one
I
second.
first I want to commend. It is not fun today and probably serving any public position because you get chewed up and spit up about anything anymore. So I do admire the fact you're having a public hearing tonight, having some comments. And I think all of you know I've been around the block. I've been the legislator. I have a brother was superintendent for 18 years at Triway School and retired from that school, and they begged for him to come back. So we've had lots of conversations about education, school funding. You know, my mother and my father both worked at Claymont at one time, you know, during their life. But I guess today what I'm really taken back is, first of all, I know the comments like the house is burning down, the money. And I get it with the state, folks. What the state's doing is horrible. They should step up the plate. The problem is we want to give every concept out there money for anybody who wants to do any type of school today when we should be focused on our public school. Absolutely agree with that. I mean, that is wrong what is taking place. My only question is, when I sit here and I listen about the future, I understand, I'm proud to say in my whole lifetime, I've never operated anything, ever had a money problem. The village of Denison saw it today, and most of its bills paid and don't have long-term debt. But one thing that bothers me, we 5 years ago, 6 years ago, passed a levy, a $5 million bond levy, a permanent levy that said 3 mills goes for operation, 2 mills goes to capital fund. We were supposed to fund the stadium out of that, which we needed to. The restrooms were deplorable at the time and the facilities, but we were supposed to do that in stages, and the rest of the money was supposed to go back to community schools. And it is true that money has been spent on our schools, but it's also equally true that we have a $6 million debt on our stadium right now. That is basically is what the financing of that line of credit is going to pay for today, when maybe a little bit more of that should have went to our buildings. It should have been a priority of the education portion. So, I mean, I'm just pointing this out. Now you're talking about 17 million. And I guess I got to ask you, someone living here, I hope you do your numbers, because that's 20 some million dollars of debt. 6% of interest on that. Do you understand how much that interest in a year on that is? And if you're worried about declining enrollment right now, what's going on, and we're worried about the state, we have a governor's race next year. We have no idea who's going to get elected. We have no idea what they believe in. We always see every time there's a change of governor, it's a new philosophy. So you have all those concerns. We had the federals cut back on funding. And I know that a lot of that took care of special needs and handicap and different things like that. So I don't know exactly what the bottom line is out on you. I said, you have a stressful time, but I really would only say to you, the public made a vote 6 years ago, and they supported by 87 votes. That's all that passed by, supported the concept of fixing our community school buildings. And I understand you may have to downsize because you don't have the enrollment. I get that. But I'm not sure we're all sold that Claymont should go out and borrow $17 million on top of the stadium $6 million debt right now. And I would say you're rolling the dice on that with not knowing the future. And I'm just simply saying we don't have a crystal ball. We just don't have a crystal ball. None of us do. The towns are in the same boat. So right now you got to make a decision. If you have too much space, you got to downsize. My only thing I would say to you is you're competing at this point in time, charter schools, like you said, and everything else. Whatever building you eliminate, you better think long and hard, because maybe you'll be stuck with those 4 buildings for a long time, because maybe the funding scheme won't go the way you want. Are you going to meet all the requirements? Their recess, plenty of room for their classroom. I talked to a young parent this weekend and said, when I go to select to send my kid to a school, I'm going to be looking at that. I don't want to go into a school if they're shoved in like sardines, or they don't have the adequate recreation gyms, the facilities, the common area they need to function with. Remember, that's a selection now the parents have. Maybe it'll change in a few years, but right now parents have choice. So remember the presentation of what you're presenting to the new student coming into school, what you're offering at this current time. So, I don't envy what you got to go through, and I'm not here to criticize. Dennis and Uhrichsville will get through it. It's not about our tax sharing. We will get through it. But I think for a lot of us, it's the process. We closed 3 schools in a row based on the small schools. Rush was first. They had low enrollment. It was way out in the country, but they had a plan. If you remember, the church took it over, and they ran a Christian school out there. The next one was the north side, and of course the Thornton Park. And finally, I'll just say on the Thornton Park, and I'm done. It's disgusting what I have to drive by every day when I look at that Thornwood Park. I hope we don't execute this on either town, whatever we do, because I'll tell you that we should be ashamed. Windows have been broken. They've had it repaired. Litter, trash, grass is still vacant to this day. And I've only had one person in 5 years ever call me about potentially using that building. And it never went no farther after they found out what they have to do by state law to meet the building codes to change the use of that building. So for everybody out there, I mean, I'm done on this, but when you say use, rectify, or change a building, you have no idea how much millions it takes to change the use of a school building. So the school needs to do the right thing when they ever make the choice of what to do on the building they're going to leave. Either have someone occupy it, or you may have to make the tough choice to take care of the building.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Donato. Yes, sir.
First of all, I
Mr.
really
Zuko.
wanted to stand up. And secondly, I'm waiting for the day when I don't have to follow Greg. So anyhow, thank you. And the thoughts that go through my mind, I have sent some emails through this process in representing the city of Uhrichsville. So, you know, I believe strong communities, strong schools, and vice versa. So I'm not here to be critical. I know you're smart people, and you're elected by the people to do what's best for the communities. So tough decisions, a lot of times, strong leadership means tough decisions. So my presentation is the comments I've made, and I've sent emails to Mr. Wrench, and is why. I think as a community or communities, we need to ask why. Why we're in this position, how did we get here? I saw the state data, but the local data, what disturbed me representing Uhrichsville, so that most of you know, we're a city, the numbers this year of 5,055 people. 55 people less, we are a village. We are a city of 68% rentals. So it's landlord-based community. We're fighting hard to change that culture and keep Uhrichsville strong, which also means a strong school system. But the numbers show demise. So, you know, I'm not trying to be critical. I just like to think that maybe there's a document out there where cost-benefit analysis or projections, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, because if this building becomes an issue, you know, there's a dinosaur in Uhrichsville. So I don't know what that exactly means right now, but I would like to think that we're trying to stay ahead of that. So, you know, Greg and I work well together. The communities thrive. We want to do that, but I think we have to think forward. And I appreciate what you do, and work with us together in local government, but think about why. All of us need to ask why. That, you know, not too many years ago, maybe a few decades ago, Uhrichsville was a city of 10,000 people. So your numbers are going to be hindered by what we have in our community, what's the lifeline of our community. So we all got to work together, but I also think we need to think down the road what this really means financially and what it does to our communities, because we're all smart enough to know what happens impacts here now forever. So those buildings don't come back. And what happens to those buildings when you look at some of the beautiful buildings in our community at one time and the degradation. So along with that degradation is lower enrollment. So let's continue to work together, but please, as a group, think about long-term projections. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Zuckel. Is there anyone else? Mrs. Lloyd?
Good evening. My name is Holly Lloyd, and I am speaking on behalf of the Claymont Education Association. First, I want to be clear. Claymont educators want meaningful, collaborative conversations with administration, real sessions where our day-to-day knowledge of Claymont student helps shape decisions. In a strong community, school systems, this level of collaboration is standard. It would already be happening long before a public forum like this. and it has not happened. We also need to be honest about the process. This issue has not received sustained structure or collaborative discussion with the professionals who work directly with students every day. Instead, it has surfaced in brief mentions at board meetings without the depth, transparency, or opportunity that a decision of this magnitude demands. A few questions came up that were not answered. I was a little disappointed that our board members were not able to answer many of these questions because I thought I was coming here to hear our board. Finance. We should not have to request the finance of what each building costs. I know the board receives that. The board receives reports at every board meeting, but those reports are not given to staff, to the public, unless you request it. We're not getting any of that information. We don't know what it costs per building per year. We don't know which building costs more. And those answers were not answered tonight. We talked again, Mr. Wrench talked again about busing. This came up a year or so ago. We're expected, our high school students, to get picked up first and dropped off first, where our littlest of kids in our primary and elementary grades are getting picked up first because it depends on the area. They're all bused together, but then they're riding a bus for an hour or more until the primary or the elementary start. No one is looking at the child and how their brain works. Little kids are ready and functioning much earlier. Older kids are ready much later in the day. So if you're really looking at transparency for busing, our littlest kids should be starting school first, and our oldest kids should be starting school later. Building capacity. They asked the question, what is the building capacity? Only a few answers or only a few questions were answered for the primary building. We're asking about all of the buildings. What is the pupil capacity for every building? How many classrooms at every building? Your staff knows this for their individual building, but we don't know it for the rest of the district. The primary, for example, one at Choice C has first grade going to the primary. There is currently no room for first grade at the primary. There are not 2 playgrounds. The 36 months is between the youngest child and the oldest child. Right now at the primary, our youngest preschool student cannot be with some of our kindergarten students because they exceed 36 months. How do you add first grade to that? You have 1 bathroom. All of the parents and grandparents, do you know how much longer it takes primary kids to use the restroom than upper elementary kids? It takes forever. And we have 1 restroom for the students at the primary building. There is no room for first grade. So option C, I don't even know how that's even an option. Claymont school buildings are not just structures. They are the heart of this community. Decisions about consolidations or closures deserve the same weight, time, and inclusive process as the role our schools play in the lives of our students and families. We are also deeply disappointed to learn that the board intends to act on March 31st. That's 2 weeks from tonight, and this is the first opportunity we've had for a public forum or any input. That gives the staff an extremely small window between tonight's meeting and the final vote, a window that falls during spring break when teachers are not available for further discussion. Meaningful educator input simply cannot occur under this timeline. Our professional voices matter. Our community deserves a respectful, serious process. And even if the board continues to overlook the expertise of Claymont staff, Our commitment to students will never waver. We will always advocate for what is best for our students, our families, and our community, whether or not we are ever invited into the planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lloyd.
Just a concerned citizen, John O'Hara. Ooh, better? Okay. All right. Have you guys considered also, including you and you guys here, the repealing of the property taxes, that if they get enough signatures in the state of Ohio, they're going to vote on it? And that's going to affect the villages, the cities, the townships, and all school districts. So when you're making these moves and wanting to borrow millions of dollars, it might not be there. You might not have any money at all to even operate on if they get the 400-some thousand signatures to repeal that. So you guys ought to look into this before you start signing on the dotted line.
My wife would kill me. She was a former employee of Claymont Schools. My name's Kevin Johns. I own a couple of businesses. I had no plan of saying anything tonight. I was just here to listen. What I do know is this. We own a couple little companies, one in Denison, one in Uhrichsville. What I do know is I've lived here for 65 years. That happens to be how old I am. My birthday's May 15th. You want to send cards, gifts will be accepted. What I will say is this. The school board's got a tough job. Please don't hate me forever. I commend the fact that 2 of the school board members answered questions. I was very disappointed that not more board members did say that. We did vote you there. And matter of fact, everybody sitting on that stage got my vote. What I do say is these decisions are important. But what I do know, there's probably press here tonight, right? Is there press? Yeah. What they're going to report is Claymont did the same thing they always did. What they always do. They fought amongst themselves. They told everybody how bad things are. The reality is the school is in a crisis. We can say they spent the money the wrong way 20 years ago. The reality is, gang, if you own a business or if you even own a home, when the money stops, you have to do something. When we're in a place right now where Uhrichsville is going to possibly become a village, we have a problem. And fighting amongst ourselves, I guarantee you, will not fix it. We got to come up with ideas. I bounced something off the superintendent, and he looked at me probably like he was shocked. Can we make one of them a trade school? Can we educate people? I can tell you every day when I call and talk with people that we do business with on the forklift side of the business, they're all looking for good employees. I'm not saying that's I'm not saying that's the answer. What I'm saying is what we don't want is another park school. So there's enough ideas in this room to fix it. I don't want to be in the paper saying how bad the Claymont School District decision was and so on and so forth. We got to rally around each other. What I will say is this. You guys got a tough job. You got a tough job. I will do anything within my power to make Claymont strong again. What I do know is there's enough people here to do it. There's enough brain power here to do it. We just got to do it.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Okay. Any administrators have anything they'd like to add? Or no? Okay. Well, with that being said, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Like Martha has said, and none of this is being made lightly. None of these decisions are being made lightly. You know, we're trying to think of all things involved when we make our decision here, and we all have hopefully what's in the best interest of Claymont at the center of our attention here. So I appreciate everybody coming out, and thank you. Oh.
I'd like to add that I'm available. You can call me, email me. My email's on the school email site, the website. My cell phone number's on there. If I don't answer, it doesn't mean that I don't want to talk to you. It's the fact that I may be in the middle of doing something, but feel free to give me your opinion. I am interested. I have not made a decision. I know a lot of people said a lot of the board members have. I've talked to a lot of people in the community. I have not made my decision. It's a very hard decision, and I love Claymont, and I chose to run the second time because I'm committed to my community and I'm committed to the Claymont School District. Anybody that knows me should know that, but if you don't know me, I'm letting you know that I am very committed. It's a hard decision, a decision that I don't really want to be making, but that's what my role up here is, to do that. My job is to help keep a financially stable school district so that we can pay our teachers, our OPSI staff, everybody can be paid fairly, our students can get an education, and we can get kids out in the community and we can make them productive. That's our job. So we're in business to educate students, and we have to do it the most financially sound way. Unfortunately, the government has put us in a situation where we have to make change. A lot of good points were brought up. The meeting has been taped, so I did take some notes, but I will be reviewing this. But if anybody wants to talk privately to me or has a suggestion, you can email me, call me. I'm available. And anybody that knows me knows I'm a talker, so I don't have a problem talking. So thank you. And I appreciate everybody coming out, and be careful getting home.
And I guess I would echo that for all of us. We have an email list on our school's website, as well as our phone numbers. I do work during the day, and I'm a crazy volunteer at night, but listen, I will answer your call. Maybe not right then, but I will take your message and I'll return the call to you. And feel free to reach out via email as well.
All right. Well, with that, I'd take a motion and a second to adjourn. Martha and Lois. 7:31. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Be safe. Going home.